Welcome to the Babbling Pastor Podcast, your favorite podcast on the internet, the most engaging podcast that you'll ever witness in your entire life. Welcome to the $1 Million Studio. I'm talking about Rob's. Look at that. Outdoor. Breathe the fresh air.
It felt like $1 million studio when I was signing the papers.
Right? Tell you what, people can't own houses anymore. I saw a as a reel the other day that said it went through all the generations, and one of them said we had Instagram, the generation before had Facebook, the generation before that had MySpace, the generation before that was able to go to college and own a house on a one-person salary. And I was like, no.
Yeah, so we've come a long way.
Yeah, we have. It's very, I mean, we've
depressing.
It's the same. It's the same thing. It's not a big deal.
Yeah.
I mean, hey, it does really sell the idea of homesteading, growing your own crops, except for the fact that stuff's hard to do, by the way. So, in a sustainable way. I mean, really, I don't think you understand how much food you eat until you have to grow your own. So, chickens are a good investment. Have you had chickens before? Chickens are a good investment.
My wife would have chickens.
Here's the thing about chickens before we get into this episode. They produce a lot of eggs. If you like eggs, obviously chickens are the way to go. However, they are filthy creatures. I mean, they are disgusting animals. And if you get a rooster, they're just violent creatures. So you got violent and vile together. You get eggs, but you got to fight for them some days, because these roosters they lock on, and they get a vendetta against you, and then they chase you, and it's just not. And then you got the hens pecking each other to death, and then you got to make sure you don't got wild animals going there and eating your chickens. That's how we got rid of chickens, by the way. The raccoon army came one night and just decimated the whole tribe. We didn't have chickens after that.
Did you hire them?
No, I didn't. I enjoyed you don't really have to hire raccoons. They just show up.
they just do their thing.
Yeah, it's a small known fact. You don't have to hire them. They just come and rob you of all things. Yeah. Dog food, they really like dog food. Chickens, they love chickens. I think it's the sport of the game for them. I once shot a raccoon with a Nerf gun. Fun fact.
Nice.
Didn't do a whole lot. Didn't do a whole lot, but I did find out that same night that they're very good at perching on a fence. It's as far as balance, bodies are big. The balance is good. At least these particular raccoons. So, welcome to the Babbling Pastor Podcast. I am Michael. This is Rob. We are going to pivot into something more important at 3 minutes and 25 seconds here. So, if you made it that far.
Listen, stop. I have to say, they're not going to hear that timestamp, Michael, until it's too late.
That's true. That's true.
Let's keep doing it. It probably will make us feel a little better about what we're doing.
It does. And it's really about making me feel better at the end of the day anyway.
Yeah.
So,
right.
Let's head over here. So, today we're going to be talking about a Jack Hibbs video. This video is 2 minutes and 33 seconds. Okay. So it's going to take a minute to get through. And he is talking about, obviously we are not, I just want to say this on the forefront of this. Well, two things. Have you seen this video?
I don't think so. I know.
Okay.
I know I haven't. I don't watch Jack Hibbs stuff.
So there's a lot of things that we could technically cover in this video. What I want to talk about in this video is what is really in the last 30 seconds or so of it. But for you to understand the last 30 seconds or so, you have to watch the full 2 minutes and 33 seconds. So that being said, there's going to be a lot that we could talk about in this video, but the last part is what I would like to focus on. So that being said, let's go through this and listen to Jack Hibbs for 2 minutes and 33 seconds. I also want to note that I did not know how much I don't like his voice until I heard him talking. So I'm a voice guy. Like, there are some voices that just annoy me. And apparently Jack Hibbs is one of those voices. So here we go.
Hey, so the term is replacement theology. I just want you to think about that word for a moment. Replacement theology comes heavily out of those who hold, some, not all, some who hold to Reformed theology. And in their Reformed theology, they have, in their practice, replacement theology. Replacement. Think about the word replacement. Replacement of a hip, replacement of a heart. What's going on here? It's taking out that which was and putting in something that is new. Take out Israel from the Bible and put the church in, because that's what we want to do, they say. Israel has no right to God any longer. They're the Christ killers. They blew it. And everything that God promised to Israel is now promised to the church. Thus, replacement theology. I want to leave you with this thought. I believe that is one of the most, if not the most, egregious and arrogant belief systems today. It justifies, first of all, and spreads anti-Semitic thought. But did you know that God is not an anti-Semite? It also violates the Bible. God says that his covenant with the nation of Israel and the children of Abraham, that is both by belief and by genetics and by government. God says, I will never, never abandon the covenant I've made with them. It is eternal. As long as there's stars and sun and moon in the sky, so long will my covenant be with Israel forever. So why replacement theology? Because it's a bad doctrine. It is evil from the get-go. It violates the authority of Scripture, and frankly, it understands nothing about Bible prophecy, because wherever Israel appears, they put the church in there, and that corrupts the entire narrative of eschatology, and it is certainly holding suspect soteriology, the doctrine of salvation. Friends, get away from replacement theology and from those who hold to it. It is a last days manifestation promised by the Lord, that there'd be those in the last days departing from the faith. There would be those in the last days that would turn their back on Israel. Just make sure you're not one of them.
Okay. Listen, where you got to tell me before I even say anything, Michael, you have to tell me again, which part are we talking about?
Okay, so specifically, I thought it was a bold choice to say that replacement theology is a last day manifestation of heresy, right? So he says it right about, hold on. So he doesn't say heresy, but it's right about right.
Oh my gosh. Well, he says
here,
departing from the faith.
Because it's a bad doctrine.
Yeah, here we go.
It is evil from the get-go. It violates the authority of Scripture, and frankly, it understands nothing about Bible prophecy, because wherever Israel appears, they put the church in there, and that corrupts the entire narrative of
hold on, we got to go a little bit further.
Eschatology, and it is certainly holding suspect soteriology, the doctrine of salvation. Friends, get away from replacement theology
right here
and from those who hold to it. It is a last days manifestation promised by the Lord, that there'd be those in the last days departing from the faith.
Okay, so that was the part specifically. I'm like, you are saying. First of all, I think we could talk a little bit about this, because I think it is important to understand his further comments. But his idea that how he describes replacement theology, I think is a straw man to my understanding of what replacement theology is. But not only that, he says he uses a straw man, but then it's a very bold move to be like, hey, it's a departing of the faith. It is apostasy. It is like that. It is, how does he keep
There would be those in the last days that would turn their back on Israel. Just make sure.
Yeah, so anyway, so that specifically, but your face tells me there's a whole lot more you want to talk about than just that part. But that was the part that I was like, that's a bold move.
Look, like replacement theology, it's not a secret. Replacement theology is I don't know anyone who would be in, and he's talking about me, okay? So let's just get that straight. And everybody like me. But Um, I don't know anyone in the Reformed. That's not to say that there isn't a random person out there, okay, or even a wing of people out there, or whatever. I'm just not familiar with anyone. And I've floated through many circles, through like the Ligonier world, the G3 world, founders, like the whole Reformed situation, okay. And I don't know anyone who would even, you know how like when you talk to someone who is an amillennial, the first thing they have to do is say, now listen, I know awe means none, but that's deceiving. We don't actually believe in no millennium. Um, this is kind of the same thing. Like replacement theology is a bad way to put what it's an unfair title, let's say it that way, to what actually is believed by the Reformed community, right, or replacement theologians, right. I don't. I Let me say it this way: I don't know a single replacement theologian as he defined it all right there. I would say a few things. I've heard someone say that. Um, uh, so on a broader scale, I think that part of the conversation to be had in a video like this is to say we can have differing views and not call one another heretics, and not
Yeah.
even get to like this you've left the faith kind of thing. Okay.
Mhm.
um, I uh, I so that's one thing. To the actual point, I think that so I've heard dispensational folks who have said famously, every time the New Testament uses the word Israel, it means Israel, right? And but every time the Old Testament uses the word Israel, it doesn't even always mean the nation of Israel, right? Um, the 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 Israel used to just mean the guy renamed Israel, for instance. Okay, Israel at one point in the Old Testament is used to describe his family long before they were even a nation, um, uh, uh, and several other things. Okay, so to make the point that um, uh, so I think that the strongest way I think it's fulfillment theology is a better way to say what I would personally hold to. And I say that because those children of Abraham, you and I both grew up singing that as children, right? Father Abraham had
The sons.
many sons had Father Abraham.
Man,
I am one of
I'm one
them,
of them,
and so
and
are
so are
you.
you.
Right?
So let's keep
So
it. Yeah.
either so let's just praise the Lord. Like either that's true or it's not, right? And I think it's really funny that we grew up in an incredibly premillennial dispensational situation, like Left Behind series situation, right? And still sing that song. Like I don't, that doesn't click, right?
Yeah. There's
Um,
cognitive
I,
dissonance. So
Yeah. So I think here's what I think. I think that we've created an entity that didn't need to be created. When we say the church, um, we think something naturally that's different than Israel. We think about an entity that started in the first century, and I realize I'm probably on lonely ground to say it like that, because a lot of people would say, well, the beginning of the church, Acts 2 or whatever, right? But I think that maybe the beginning of God's new covenant people, or the beginning of so in I'll just say it this way to make it short. The term church in the New Testament ecclesia is the Greek word, right? And it just means the gathering, or the gathered people of
Set
God is
apart,
essentially
yeah.
what the yeah. The idea there is the congregation. It's translated in other places, right? And it's translated church whenever Jesus says in Matthew 16, "I'll build my church," right? But in Acts chapter 7, I think, when Stephen is giving his spiel to the Sanhedrin, he says he talks about Moses and the congregation in the wilderness, and that's the word church. But it's not translated like that in any of your cute little translations, because we also interpret when we translate. Um, the Septuagint, aka the Bible that Jesus read from and the apostles, right? The Old Testament translated into Greek, used ecclesia a lot. In fact, that's where the term Ecclesiastes comes from. Um, so the church, as we think about it, the very fact that the New Testament writers use that word is an intentional move to associate now even the Gentiles with the people of God in the Old Testament that have always existed. That is why you and I can say, yes, Father Abraham, and I am one of them, because that's true. Because the seed of Abraham is Christ and all who are in him. So, I think that that is a big problem that's not addressed enough. Is that we've really created the separation. We've created something there. It's not that the church is some entity that has replaced Israel, right? Um, there were 11 chapters in the Bible before Abraham shows up, right? And we're not going back to just Jerusalem or something in the end. Look at all of the same language at the end of the book and at the beginning of the book. There's a lot of garden temple kind of imagery there. We're going back to Eden, except better, because now the possibility of falling is it's impossible.
Yeah.
There is no fall, right? So um, I just think that it's a misunderstanding, and I'm coming to the text, um, having been already given and put on certain lenses, that are unhelpful to actually see what's actually in the text, right? When the New Testament, you see the word church, I would just love it if they would all translate it congregation, or something.
Yeah.
I think that
Yeah. The
the same way that I
gathering,
think if
those
we
gathered,
would
yeah.
I think that if we would translate the term tongues into just languages when that's what it means, that would clear a lot of crap up in that venue as well. That we have these weird notions because of what we've grown up around and that kind of thing. But I think that probably fulfillment theology makes more sense if you're going to give it some kind of term. Um, but it's definitely not replacement.
Well, and I think one of the reasons I wanted to the primary reason, like I stated, that I wanted to look at it was because I think what he does there, and I'm glad you walked through and sort of explained that, because there are going to be people obviously that watch this that don't know one or the other, but by him, he's so I don't know. I don't want to assume motive here, but he seems to deliberately attach Reformed theology to replacement theology, and then goes on to
Mhm.
explain his version of replacement theology, and at the end says it's a last day apostasing of the faith, which
Yeah.
basically points, if you're just a Joe Schmo out here that attends church, you don't know a lot about theology, you don't have time to get into the theology, but Jack Hibbs is like your doorway into biblical truth here. You're going to assume by his video that all Reformed theology, or most of Reformed theology, is therefore an apostasing of the faith that is biblical,
Yeah.
that is shown in the Bible. And so what you're doing here is not only being incredibly, I think, deceptive in defining your terms, but you're not doing anything to, if you're talking about, like, I get called divisive all the time because of my, memes or sermon reviews or whatever. But if you're talking about like actual divisiveness, you are literally having a pastor stand in front of people and say, if you have anybody that's reformed, or is in a reformed church, or in a church that declares himself to be reformed, run, because it is a last day evil apostasy. And you're telling a lot of people that in a time where, and maybe this is deliberate, I don't know, but in a time where Reformed theology really has sort of had an uptick, sort of a reemergence, or just people know more about it because of certain pastors. And so, so now you have Jack Hibbs, which isn't a very popular pastor among people our age, but is more of like maybe our parents' age. They know of him, but he does have an inlet with like Charlie Kirk and Charlie Kirk's events, and so he does have a doorway to younger generations. And so what you have is somebody that has access to a lot of people, basically being incredibly divisive and saying this belief, which I have now wrongly defined, is heresy, and spreading that out and having no sort of way to correct that. Now, what I see as good news is that he's pretty much been roasted online for this take. I haven't seen anybody positively view this video. But the reality is he does feel comfortable enough to do this. And I think, and I don't know if we have time or even want to get into this, but I think there's also a political flavoring to this as well, in which there's some motivation behind that as well, because of everything that is happening between Israel and Palestine and the United States government. And I think part of that is tied in. Now, though we don't have time to go down that direction, I do think there is, we've talked about before, I don't know if this episode or another one, where we have to, as we come to the text, have to sort of see what lenses we've been given and take our lenses off as best as we can. I think there is something to be said about that in regards to, there are certain implications to theologies that we hold. We talked about that during the first episode, right? So if you have the theology of the rapture and certain dates, you're going to approach the world in a particular way. And I think that not only is it dangerous for Hibbs to be like, hey, Reformed theology is heresy, essentially is what he's saying. It is also dangerous for him, I think, to come out and be like, hey, what he's basically saying is, if you don't support Israel, and not even bringing that topic up, but what he is saying here is, if you don't support them, you're an anti-Semite and you're not on God's side. It's essentially what he's saying. And so there's a lot, I think, that can be said about pastors getting up, well-known pastors like him, getting up and saying certain things that have a lot of implications at the end of the day for the people that they're talking to, that maybe either don't know any better or don't have the time to do a lot of digging into it. And so you're just getting your information from Hibbs and you're assuming he's right. And you're just going on with life. And so now when I run into a Reformed person, if I follow Hibbs, I go, hey, did you know you're basically in an end times cult? That's essentially the idea here.
Yeah, I think that there's something to be said too here about that, about what you're talking about. I've never read a commentary or book or whatever in which someone who is, let's say, amillennial, or is Arminian or Calvinistic, and they talk about the other perspective and they nail it. That rarely ever happens.
I know one book. I just want to spit out right now. Nick Campbell Tiptoeing Through the Tulips. He covers Arminianism and Calvinism. It is the only book that I am aware of that has been praised by both sides for accurately depicting the positions. So just heads up, guys, if you want to check that out, Tiptoeing Through the Tulips.
So you've just proved the point, because the very fact that that's newsworthy proves the point that, like, that is such a rare commodity. I love and respect and look at John MacArthur as one of the, like, in 1,000 years, should the Lord tarry, despite what Jack and the rapture people, who by this time, as you're watching this, have gotten that wrong in September, but um, but like, I'm totally, like, I respect and love him. There is, I forgot what I was going to say about it. But he, yeah, totally lost it. I don't know, getting old.
You're not sure where you went with that. Okay.
Yeah. But MacArthur held. Yeah, I'm lost. I don't know. I don't
Okay,
know what I was
whatever.
going to say.
Okay, well, I do want to.
It wasn't important.
Yeah, I do want to show this book real quick. Just again, anytime I have a chance to point out something from somebody that I really enjoy. Hold on, where's this going? Wait, okay, this is the most generic way to present this, but here's the book that I'm talking about. Anyway,
Tiptoeing Through Tulip.
Yeah, it's one of those. I'd be honest with you, he gave me a copy. I've read through part of it. I haven't got through the whole thing. Man, this is just a terrible presentation. Anyway, so check that book out, guys. That's all I'm saying. It's been praised by both sides as far as Calvinism, Arminian, for rightly presenting both sides, not strawmanning each position. And so that, at least to the point you were, I think, making there for a minute, it's a rare thing to see that. So if you do want to know both sides, it's not strawman. That's a good book to present to people or to give to people.
This is where I was going to go with that. I'm tempted. I've got too much to do, so I won't. But at some point I'll get that book and look through it. MacArthur did a famed, right, or infamous, I guess, depending on what kind of view you hold or whatever, but did a talk, a lecture at one point. I think it was actually at a Shepherd's conference some years ago, or some kind of conference, in which he just straight went to eschatology. He went to prophecy conference kind of mentality, and then there were Sam Waldron did a book response to it entitled MacArthur's Millennial Manifesto, and it was one of the things to take note of in that sermon. And you really don't have to search too hard to find it. One of the things to take note of in that sermon is that as he's describing both amillennialism and postmillennialism, he uses references and descriptions that no one in either of those camps would use. He butchers what the actual arguments are. And I, like, MacArthur's brilliant. He, like, I'll never be as brilliant of a studious guy as he was. And so that this isn't a knock on him. It's just to make that point that I think that if you want to know what a group believes, right, you're going to learn more from the writings of, let's say, Joseph Smith or other higher up people throughout the history of Latter-day Saints or Mormonism, then you're going to learn about Mormonism from the average Christian who knows some things about Mormonism. We're going to butcher some of it, and So all that to just illustrate, I think that one thing that we can learn from what Jack Hibbs just did, and I don't have anything against Jack Hibbs. I don't really know him. I know of him, but what just happened is a really crazy misrepresentation of what Reformed people hold to. Um, and in fact, you probably saw my visceral reaction just listening to it as we were waiting to start talking. And I can imagine that just about anyone in the Reformed camp would be having the same internal thing going on as he's explaining that, because it's like, that's not what I believe at all, you know? Um, but, uh, but anyway, like, I think that there's something to be said about taking, um, so it's important, practical application, okay, for the watcher or hearer. It's important not just to see a video like that, and go, okay, well, I ought to beware. I think the first move you should make as a thinking, studious, Bible studying, right? Like, you can't just willy nilly go out if you don't know your scriptures, right? Um, but as a studious Bible studying Christian living in community with other Christians, the first thing you should do is see this video and go, crap, is he right? And then go look at people who believe these things and weigh it yourself, in community, right? That's probably safer. But don't just take one guy's word for it, or even one sect's word for it, one camp's word for it, because um, if there weren't some kind of reason, so many people wouldn't. Uh, if it were just that obviously crazy, right? Um, uh, there wouldn't be such a large group of people, um, in those camps within Orthodox Christianity. Which, I mean, I guess he's saying it's not even Orthodox Christianity, um, uh, but you've got to weigh it yourself. Don't just hear what somebody says. Dispensationalism makes for some crazy foreign policy, um, and and um, and it completely ignores so often, practically. I'm not going to say this across the board. Obviously, I don't know every dispensationalist, um, but from my personal experience, it completely ignores the fact that actually what they need to hear is that their Messiah has come, and that they need to submit to him as Savior and Lord, or there isn't any chosen people status that's going to keep you from hell eternally. Like, they need Christ. They need the gospel of Jesus Christ. That's what they need. They don't, like, we tend to see the newspapers and go, oh shoot, well, we better support Israel. Look, God isn't supporting Israel right now. They're against him. They're again. They've spit in the face of his son, and their Messiah is there. He's waiting for them. He's calling them. He's weeping over them. Whatever, right? I'm not saying they're, like a inferior race or some crap like some people might want to paint that, but I am saying that they're not different than the unbelievers in Egypt right now, or Guatemala, or whatever, or Texas for that matter, whatever. They need the gospel. That's what they need. And instead, a lot of folks tend to be happy to support them in whatever sinful actions even they might want to take, and watch them stroll all the way to hell in the name of support, making sure that we're supporting Israel. And I think that we have to ensure that we're getting back to the gospel, and that is our stance at the end of the day, that the Israelite today needs Christ the same way that the person and any unbeliever from any nation, tribe, or tongue needs Christ. That is our message to the Jewish people today. Um, Come and bow the knee to your Messiah, because he's real. It happened. He's alive, and he is your only hope.
All right. Well, You're right. There's a lot more we could get into that, but we do not have time. Guys, if you found this helpful, if you have some reaction, as Rob had, to this video, make sure you go ahead and leave a comment, leave a like, leave a dislike. I don't care. Just interact with the content, okay? I just need you to interact. I'm not as good an actor as you. I need you to have a plea for the like here. But we'll talk. There you go. See, if you don't like it, he's going to cry. If you don't like it, he's going to have a whole breakdown. Go and like the video.
Need to be validated. I just need the validation.
I just, which side are you?
kidding,
Okay, I'm going to pat you on the back there. All right, guys, we'll talk to you next week. Goodbye.
See ya.
Bye. Wow.